Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais. Andrew and Nick are on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. And welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast. I'm here, Nick's here. I am freaking zapped today. Work was worky.
It does seem to do that now and then.
Put it this way, I was so zonked out that when I got home, first of all, my wife wanted to kiss, and I literally needed like a couple of seconds to woosah before I could kiss her.
That's an aggressively shitty day.
And then I went and got my pipe tobacco and everything, went out on the back porch. And I smoked my pipe and had like a good 10 minutes before I looked at my phone and realized, oh, today's Thursday. I have to do a podcast this evening.
Hey, you caught it before 7.
Dude, I'm telling you, there are days where like my little calendar on my phone is the only thing stopping me from just spacing out in all kinds of directions.
Yeah, as much as we like to dog on these things, that the anxiety rectangles, man, they are handy.
Dude, I'm gonna tell you that like the little murder screen in my pocket. On the one hand, I'm convinced that they are the downfall of society, but I also believe that for the person who has as many different tasks and irons in the fire as some people do, it's a godsend.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that thing beeping in my pocket tells me, hey, dummy, you're about to forget something.
Yeah.
So, Raggle saying, my children are running me ragged. I feel you. I would be drinking, but I gave it up for Lent.
I forgot it was Lent.
I mean, I'm not mad at you, but there are reasons why I'm not Catholic anymore, because I am not convinced that my Creator wants me to give up booze or caffeine or tobacco. Because he claimed through his teachings that I should love my fellow man, and that's going to require alcohol and tobacco and coffee. That's just fair. Is.
You know, I do think there is some good to doing periodic intentional withdrawal from certain things.
I disagree wholeheartedly.
I don't know, man. I regularly will run out of bourbon and then just forget to get more. Like sometimes it'll go like 6 months where I'll be like, oh, you know, I'd like to have bourbon. Go over to the kitchen. Like, we are entirely out of booze. All right.
But point of order, I don't believe you're an alcoholic.
No, definitely not. I
am a coffeeholic.
True.
I happily admit I have a chemical dependency to caffeine. It is clinical. It might be terminal, but it is a thing.
It'll be terminal for somebody.
It will be terminal for somebody. I'm not saying I would commit like acts of physical violence if I wasn't allowed to have coffee, but I am saying that the chance is more than zero.
I kind of get my theory on that from, I think it was either Marcus Aurelius or Socrates. It was one of the Stoic philosophers. All things in moderation, especially moderation. And then being in the theory of being intentional with the things that you do. Like, yeah, I make coffee every morning. I do. But there are some days where I very intentionally have a coffee. And I will just have a coffee. Because, yeah, I do enjoy it, but I don't want to ever get to the point of any substance or any, like...
dependency.
Any dependency where I'm not the one choosing to do this, if that makes sense.
So, I mean, it is worth pointing out that, like, there have been periods where I have involuntarily not had the ability to drink coffee.
Sure.
And I wasn't really happy about it. But it wasn't like I was like, you know, walking up and down the street, like, you know, doing this.
Yeah.
You know, picking my scabs and stuff. It was just I really don't like my fellow man, and I would tolerate them a little bit better if I were caffeinated.
That's fair.
But anyway, admin work. And then the topic that will not require spreadsheets. It will not require banners. This is going to be like just two friends talking about a thing that I imagine at least most of the audience will probably resonate with. The audience is composed of patrons tonight, which I'm thankful for. They promote my own personal and Nick's poor behavior and poor decisions. And we appreciate y'all supporting us and the show. And each other, because, one of the cool things about being a patron is that I let you behind the curtain to have a peek at the Wizard Oz, and you also get entry into a private chat with all the rest of the patrons. And when they're not busting each other's balls, they're actually pretty helpful to each other.
Like, wildly helpful. It's like YouTube University in text form.
Yes, it doesn't really hurt that, like, literally, I can't think of a single person in that chat that does not have some area of expertise that their knowledge just blows everybody else away.
Yeah, not a single one. Everybody, and there is some overlap where you've got multiple people with very in-depth experience on the same subject, but the breadth of topics that can be covered in that chat is astonishing.
Yes, and if you do like I do sometimes and you unplug because you're busy, you come back to like 140 missed messages, and I just scroll all the way to the bottom and be like, if it was important, y'all will fill me in later.
Yup. I was not tagged in any of this. Good.
Excellent. Code MOF at Disaster Coffee. I was drinking Disaster Coffee most of the day.
Me too.
And then I had to switch to Coffee Crack to get me through the rest of my evening.
Caffeinated coffee.
Caffeinated energy drinks. Whoever had the bright idea to put Monster and coffee together was a sociopath or a brilliant person. I'm not sure which.
Both?
Probably both. But we don't sell Java Monsters in the store, unfortunately, but at Disaster Coffee we do sell all manner of coffee, everything from green beans to roasted coffee to whole bean to coffee pods that are compatible with your desktop fast coffee brewer that starts with a K, but you can't use the word because it's trademarked, which is why I'm putting in air quotes for the audio listeners. Mm-hmm. And merch of the Southern Gals. I don't know 100%, but I think I saw the principal of Southern Gals mention something about a Killdozer shirt.
Oh yes, I did see the potential for a Killdozer shirt.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna say that if your personal little Venn diagram is like the Road Warrior, Burt Gummer, Killdozer, and The Walking Dead, mm-hmm. you should probably look into the Southern Gals. The links in the show description, fun shirts, fun stuff, and it supports small business and us.
Now, Phil, this reminds me, Raggle reminds us again, we need to find a way for him to give you money to get him into the chat. That is not Patreon. Because he doesn't like it on principle. Which I understand. Patreon is kind of anti everything we like.
Yes.
But it's a very simple platform that works.
That's kind of my problem.
And OnlyFans has connotations.
And he's not the only person that's asked. I really need to put a block on my weekend calendar and try to figure that out. I mean, there are other options. I
am sure there are. I don't know of them.
I can think of a fairly simple one. I'm just trying to think if there's a more replicatable than that single simple solution.
Rebel, I don't think you can just straight up send Phil Venmos of cash. That will flag the IRS. He is a government employee.
I am already on enough watch lists. Thank you. Mm-hmm. Also, my employer credit checks me annually. Yeah. Actually, no, not annually. I think it's every 5 years. I have to have a security clearance redone every 5 years. That's how you know you have a big boy job.
Ooh, does that mean that you have to list me as a known associate?
They haven't asked for my known associates, so I'm not going to volunteer that information.
I wouldn't.
I sure as hell am not, because I'm pretty sure that the fact that I'm already on this many government watch lists is concerning enough. When they realize that all my friends are also on this same watch list, that's when the questions are really going to start.
We're trying to get our names as close together on as many lists as possible. That is the goal.
Pretty sure that's how cults and communes start, but well, let's not go there.
True, but they're fun.
Yeah, until the ATF burns it to the ground.
Well, yeah, but I mean, so is owning short-barreled shotguns until the ATF burns your house to the ground. There's a lot of fun stuff that causes the ATF to burn your house down.
You see the theme developing, though.
I do. Everything that's fun gets your house burned down. Turns out arson is the solution the government uses.
Apparently. Anyway, the topic is advocacy or anonymity. And we on the show, I think it might have been me and Andrew, have definitely talked about this at one point in the past. But like, this is a topic that keeps coming up because, personally, like, I have... When I decided to start this podcast, especially under my full Christian name, I pretty much yeeted anonymity into the wind, like, immediately.
Yeah.
But even then, like, you know, we know people in the community who've, like, done content creation under assumed identities, and it was found out later what their real names were. Like, it's really hard to hide in the modern world. It lasts
until someone decides to not let you be anonymous.
Yeah, and the problem is like, I see two side effects of trying to maintain your anonymity and doing something like this. And one is that there is a certain segment of the population that immediately becomes distrusting because you tried to hide your identity.
True.
And it's kind of hard to argue against that.
Yeah.
But the other problem is like my observation has always been that people tend to dig when it seems like there's something to dig. Like, if you try to hide, people notice. They notice what's not visible, and they go looking for it. Mm-hmm. As opposed to if you just go out on the internet and start talking about stuff like totally above board, out in the open, people tend to not look very hard because you're already out in the open. Like, there's no secrets here.
Or they assume you're just a full-on Fed plant. Which, hey, you can't win them all.
I mean, there is a running joke in the patron chat about the fact that, like, several of our friend group literally work for the government.
Yeah. I mean,
and quite a
how
few
many million people do.
Well, and I was also going to say, like, given the number of global war on terror vets that are out there, even the guys in private sector nowadays used to work for the government and still have active background checks running.
Yeah.
Anyway, but like I said, that's kind of that's the topic. That's what I wanted to talk about tonight because I bore witness to this within the last few days because my daughter, God bless her, decided to tee off on a group of friends of hers who were having a very spirited political debate, and she took the opposite opinion they all did, and she pretty well took them all to task over what she viewed as inconsistencies in the things they were presenting as fact. Mm-hmm. And I did briefly, I don't know why, I did briefly try to coach her, like, hey, maybe not choose violence, like, you know.
You tried to do the good dad thing.
Well, you know, the thing I've always tried to coach her on, and, like, it's moderately frustrating sometimes because there are times when I look at her and I think to myself, oh my God, you're your mother's child. But then there's moments like the other night where I look at her, I'm like, oh no, that is Phil Jr. right there. Because when I was her age, I never saw an argument I wanted to walk away from. I chose violence as a default position. If I thought I was right, I was ready to go to war.
Yeah.
Over anything, because I thought I was right and I wasn't going to back down. There was no thought given to diplomacy or to let the other just walk away. It's not worth fighting about, or it's not worth arguing about. It's like, no, I'm right, they're wrong. I want to argue.
Well, yeah,
and
because
I see that
folks like yourself and me, a lot of times we look at things in a very fact-based perspective.
Black and white.
Very black and white, very literal. Words have meanings. Definitions do matter. And if you're using them wrong, your entire argument is meaningless. So, like, it's not so much are we having a discussion or an argument? It's, no, you're wrong. There is no gray area. There is no discussion. You are factually incorrect. You cannot say that the sun revolves around the earth. That's not how it works. You're an idiot. But it doesn't always make friends.
Yeah, and that's the thing I was trying to coach her on the other day. Because, like, these are good friends of hers, and I was trying to encourage her to not grenade her friendships. But it got me thinking down this road of like, you know, the decision point a lot of us in various communities have had to make over the years about, do I advocate or do I just like let it slide so I can stay under the radar a little bit? And I feel like anybody that's in the preparedness community, the Second Amendment community, anybody that's really like, I don't even want to say political, like they run for office, but just like politically switched on. There's a lot of people in a lot of different communities, man, that like, whether they've thought about it or not, they have to make this decision point at some point of,
Sure.
Do I fight it out? Do I stand on business and stand for my beliefs? I heard something in passing. It could have been friend group, family, dinner table, coworkers at work, church. It could be anywhere, but I heard something that just wasn't right. It was factually incorrect. It was false. It didn't jive with what I know the facts of that situation to be. Do I let it slide, or do I be the naysayer in the group? And what kind of ill will does that buy me after the fact?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, I know what I know what you mean, and I think that there's also almost a third option that you, depending on the group of people that you're with, I have found myself among my friends as one of the more conservative ones. Hey, you know what? Fair enough. When the whole Roe v. Wade thing was going on with SCOTUS and that got overturned, there was a discussion that occurred in my basement, just on the other side of this wall next to me here, where people were very, very against the ruling that had occurred. And they did not understand the ruling at all. It wasn't ruling for or against abortion. It was ruling whether or not that medical topic was covered under the section of the Constitution that was cited in the original ruling. And when I said, look, that is actually what is being ruled on here, it was ruled correctly because it's not written in the Constitution that is what is there. It is not a pro, it is not an anti-abortion discussion at all. It is are these words in this document? Yes or no?
Yeah.
The answer is no. They took that as, I am anti-abortion. Now, I am, but that's not the point. You know, it's sometimes you can get into these discussions accidentally, even by just pointing out, yeah, but this is the actual thing that is being discussed in the law, instead of, yes, I'm for, yes, I'm against, whatever situation.
You know, this reminds me, I had this experience with Gillian, of all people, several weeks ago. And like, just to level set expectations, I am very much anti-abortion.
Yeah.
And I am 99% sure Gillian feels the same way. But when the ruling came down you're referring to, Louisiana, I can't remember if it immediately passed legislation or had a trigger legislation basically on standby if Roe v. Wade was ever overturned.
I believe it was trigger legislation, or legislation that was already on the books that would have been reenacted were that.
And that's what I'm referred to as trigger legislation. In other words, it was a law that was overruled by federal statute, with the understanding that if federal statute ever gets overturned, this jumps into play immediately.
Right.
And it has created a situation in Louisiana where abortion is basically not possible. Sure. Now, Gillian brought to my attention that there was a case recently where a young woman literally nearly died because she had miscarried, and the unborn, now deceased child needed to be DNC'd to remove from her body. But what was claimed in the article was because of the new laws in Louisiana, that procedure could not be performed, and this woman became septic and nearly died as a result of it. It was the very classic, stereotypic, stupid conservatives passed this law and it hurt women's health. And Gillian was very, very upset and alarmed by this. Like, you know, whether this was an unintended consequence or not, like, this is a really bad thing. And I agreed with her. But I went and read the law. And literally what the law states is that you cannot perform a procedure that terminates the life of the child. Mm-hmm. Once medically and legally it's determined that unborn child is no longer alive, there's nothing stopping that doctor, any doctor, from removing the dead head child. Mm-hmm. So I pointed this out to her, and I'm like, I need more information, because...
Was that the one where the doctors and nurses purposefully delayed her care to try and make a news story out of it?
Kind of seems like it.
Because I couldn't remember. I remember there being something like that happened in a couple different places where it seemed like it was activist doctors and nurses purposefully not understanding the law.
Yeah, kind of like taking the law to the point of absurdity.
Yeah.
That way they could make an issue out of it. And like I told my wife, that was kind of what I thought was going on once I really read the law. And I mean, I literally Googled the specific statute and read it word for word, and I'm like, there's nothing in here that precludes that.
No.
So if you want to argue that like the doctors misunderstood the law, and that is an unintended consequence of passing a law like this, is that some doctors don't understand it, like, okay, fair point. But the law did not cause this issue.
No, that's the doctor's fault for not being properly educated.
But to our point about advocacy versus anonymity, in that moment with the emotions in the room, there was every possibility that I bring those facts forward and immediately have called an altercation with my wife, because she's emotional and she's upset, and I am kind of like being a naysayer in the room. It's another one of those examples about how, especially when you're dealing with an emotionally charged issue, there can be that price to be paid for being the person that is logical and just says,
or that
I read the statute, it doesn't say that.
Or that at the very least is the educated person in the room on the topic. You know,
in this case, I read her the law, and then she got twice as pissed off at the doctors as she was at the initial story.
That was 100% on the doctors. That is not at all on anyone else other than the doctors who, I mean, look, you're a gun owner, I'm a gun owner. It is on us to understand firearms law better than the police.
Yes.
Better than the ATF. And
God forbid.
Hopefully at least good enough that you're not accidentally committing felonies. Now,
ignorance of the law has never been a defense.
Exactly. Ignorance of the law is not a defense. Those doctors should be at least as knowledgeable about medical related law as I am about firearms law, because people's lives are in their hands when it comes to this. You know,
admittedly, I have a better education than the average person, but I read the statute.
So do doctors.
My 13-year-old could have read that and figured out what it meant.
Right, but
I have a hard time giving ground on the idea that, like, it was a lack of understanding. Just in this one individual case, unless these doctors get their understanding of law off of TikTok and social media, because, like I said, I went and read the statute.
I do believe that a lot of them do, though. I believe a lot of people
freaking terrifying.
Well, but in their defense, being a doctor requires a very wide knowledge base. I think it does. Long hours, long shifts, very high stress job. But I think in this case, there's no excuse for, at the very least, the hospital not having had a policy meeting and said, this is the hospital's policy. This is what the law says. They have hundreds of lawyers, I'm sure.
And that's my problem. You cannot convince me that the hospital system doesn't have lawyers on freaking staff specifically for moments like this.
I guarantee you the second that case got brought before the Supreme Court, the hospital lawyers went, all right, here's what we're going to have to do if X happens. Here's what we're going to have to do if Y happens. They're going to have binders full of stuff for that, because I've worked in the manufacturing sector for a long time, and we've had meetings with lawyers about various foreign policy things that have occurred regarding even just tariffs. Okay? You can't
Very
tell
pertinent
me
lately.
that a multi-$100 million hospital system doesn't have better lawyers than a $2 million a year manufacturing business.
One would hope.
I mean, yeah, it's just...
But I mean, I guess back more towards the center line. Like, how do you figure out where to draw that line? Because like that was the thing that you and I were talking about the other day when I kind of brought this up was like, you know, I am fortunately foolish enough, I guess, to consider that because I would not engage in speech that would rise to the level of being legally actionable. Let's phrase it just like that.
Sure.
I might say controversial things, spicy things, even overtly upsetting things.
Sure.
But I also kind of feel like if as long as I'm not going to the point of legal action, then I should be able to say whatever I want and keep my private life separate from my work life. I don't talk about this kind of stuff very openly in my workplace. I have a few people that they know me, they know what I'm about. We'll talk about things kind of quietly, but it's not like I stand on the stump and, you know, beat my chest about any sort of political or, you know, firearms related issue at work because it's inappropriate.
Right.
But I've also been in that situation where, like, I've heard things said out loud that were factually incorrect, and whether it was foolish or not, I just couldn't help myself but to, like, speak up and be like, that's not accurate. That's not right.
Yeah.
But even I don't know where to tell somebody to draw the line because I'm still figuring that out situation by situation.
I think that for a very long time, conservatives drew the line way too far back. They held way too much back for way too long, and that is why one of the reasons we're in the position we're in right now.
Why do you think that is? Because I have a theory.
Because the polite thing to do in, like, say, like, dinner table discussion was always no religion, no politics, no money. Well, the impolite people were willing to talk about religion, politics, and money. And the people that tend to be more fringe are often less polite with their views. The right pushed down their extremists for a very long time and continue to do so. The left went, extremists are useful, because extremism for the left worked historically in, like, the Soviet Union, in China, in the various other socialist revolutions. That's why. I think that's why. And the conservatives said, no, we're going to be the polite professionals. And guess what? The people that shout the loudest tend to get heard, unfortunately. So we need to start shouting louder, I think.
And see, I think my perspective was simpler. Not necessarily correct, but simpler than that.
Sure.
I think your average conservative is far too concerned about being likable.
Yes. I think your average person is far too concerned about being likable, not even just conservatives. Because you saw that at the State of the Union address, if you watched any of that. Every one of the Democrats was looking around to see what each other were doing to make sure they were still in the club. But
I don't know if I agree that it's everyone, because the most outspoken vociferous liberals I personally know in, like, my personal life give less than 0 fucks if they offend or upset any conservative in attendance. They feel morally justified in upsetting the other side because their opinions are right, and if you're upset, that's a you problem. I only see this behavior of, like, I still want to be invited to the table and to the club. I only see it from one side. The other side doesn't seem to give a shit and doesn't really want the other side in their club.
But that's an outgrowth of what I was referring to, Phil. That's outgrowth of the college intelligentsia who they got their way by shouting down their opponents at these gatherings that
struggle sessions.
Yeah, struggle sessions. the loudest person in the room got their way, and that tended to be the most extreme person. And that's why they all started feeding into that with each other. And then the outright demonization of anyone that did not agree with them and did not struggle hard enough at the struggle sessions was clearly the enemy. And the enemy only exists to be destroyed.
So given that that is the backdrop we're talking about, and like, you and I are in interesting situations because, like, you live in an extraordinarily liberal state.
Mm-hmm.
And I work in an extraordinarily liberal workplace.
Mm-hmm.
And we're both in situations where, like, I feel like it's a fair assumption that the majority of the time, our opinion kind of cuts against the grain of everyone around us.
Yes, I would say that's fair. Of at least the majority population in the urbanized and semi-urbanized centers around me. Yes.
Yeah. So what do we do? Just not give a shit if we're likable or not?
That has always been my solution. I pretty much go by the rule of I would rather be hated for who I am than hate who I am pretending to be. If that makes
that's
sense.
fair. I find that
I'm okay not being invited to the dinner party or to the country club. I want to be in places where I feel welcomed and wanted. And lying to get there, I'm neither welcome nor wanted in truth.
No, that's fair. I find that really within the last 5 or 6 years, since my career has kind of taken a different track at work, like, I wouldn't say office politics guide everything, but I have reached a point where there is a certain amount of office politics involved. Like, once you get up to a certain point in any organization, there's going to be a necessity as a component of your job that you be able to work with other people, and sometimes being able to work with other people means them not despising the very sight of you.
Sure.
And I find that is the situation I find myself in very often. Like, I know I'm already fighting from the bottom up. You and I have talked about the fact that like there have literally been, I don't know to what degree, but Human Resources has looked into this podcast to see what exactly I talk about on it.
Sure.
That's the level of scrutiny I have invited into my life, into my professional life, simply by having a podcast.
Simply by existing outside the orthodoxy of your office.
Yeah.
On
the one hand, I invited that because I kind of started this podcast all these years ago under my full name, pretty much always said, let come what may, I don't care. But I have to admit, it was kind of a sobering experience when I found out, like, oh, yes, people are actively crawling through your social media to try to find out, like, have you said anything that they could get you in trouble for?
Yeah. Why would they not? You're an enemy of the revolution, Phil. That's what they see you as.
Call me idealistic. I thought I was just a coworker who was super helpful and knowledgeable. But
see, that is because you're not an ideologue. You're not. You've not been captured by an idea to the point where you can't separate it from what's going on around you.
I can't even imagine what that would be like.
I can't either. And maybe that's just how our personalities are wired, perhaps. I mean, I give a piece of advice whenever we get like an intern or an apprentice that I start working with, and they come up to me with a problem, because there's always personal disagreements in any workplace. And hey, in blue collar, sometimes somebody's going to call you a dumb fuck for doing some dumb fuck shit. That's going to happen.
God, I miss blue collar environments.
Some kids, they've never experienced that before. And I always take them, I tell them this: part of your paycheck, doesn't matter how much you're paid, doesn't matter how little you're paid, part of your paycheck is tolerating your coworkers. They are paying you a fee to tolerate the people around you that you work with. If that fee is ever not enough for you to tolerate your coworkers, you either A, have to ask for a raise to get more money to tolerate your coworkers, or B, you leave and find coworkers you can tolerate for the amount you're paid. Right?
Holy shit, I love that.
You are not just paid to make the widget. You are paid to deal with Tom in accounting and Jerry over in advertising, all right? It's part of your pay. And I tell you what, some places pay really, really well. And they have really shitty people that work there. And several of my family members are discovering that to their peril, golden handcuffs do exist.
Oh God, yes they do. Dude, you and I talk very openly about like some of the absolute just mind-numbing bullcrap I tolerate for freaking money, so I can continue to take care of my family.
But you know what, Phil? That's part of that nice chunk of change and that retirement package. It is. Because you telling me that if the pay was half what it was, you'd be dealing with it? That's what I thought.
Damn.
Yeah. As much as half your paycheck might be a fine the company pays for how stupid your coworkers are.
Oh, where were you all these years ago? That perspective makes me feel so much better about my situation.
I'm glad I could help. I actually got that piece of advice from a coworker at my first job when I was 13.
We need to put that on a shirt.
We do. I mean, Steve was actually, I ran into him not that long ago. I'm amazed he still exists with how much he smoked cigarettes. That guy smoked a lot of cigarettes. But that was I had a problem with one of the other older guys. He was very short with me all the time. And Steve pulled me aside and said, "Look, this is just how he is. This is just how he is. You can either accept that your paycheck pays for you to deal with him being an asshole, or you can go home. Those are your choices." And I was like, okay, I'm being paid to deal with an asshole. That's fine. But most money I'd ever made at that point.
I mean, that's fair. I'm going to abuse that saying from now on. Mm-hmm. A couple of comments to catch up on. Raggle saying it was a mistake to suppress that speech at the dinner table.
It was. It was absolutely a mistake.
I'll be real honest. Like, I think that when you're talking about, like, in your workplace, you could make a really good argument for maybe not choosing violence all the time and, like, you know, modulating things a little bit in the name of your employment. But when you're talking about, like, dinner table, back porch, front porch, friends and family, like, I can't speak for everybody else or the type of company y'all keep, but, like, when it comes to family, I kind of think I'm going to say what I'm going to say in as polite as I can manage, and if it bothers you that bad that you never want to see me again, we might have been blood, but we weren't family.
Yeah. I mean, at work, I will speak slightly differently. I will be polite. I will be professional. Outside of work, when you're not paying me to be polite and professional, I will be as blunt as I feel I need to be.
Jiminy Cricket is listening to you, just so you know.
She is, and she knows. I think we were dating for all of like 3 months before I told her mom off about something.
You made it 3 months. I made it a full year.
To be fair, I only spent like a couple hours with her parents at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother... I need to wait till the statute of limitations runs out on my in-laws before I start telling all those stories.
There you go.
But as far as, like, that's family. Now, as far as friends, I'm going to be real honest. If I invite you into my life, like, if I've gone on vacation with you, if I've camped with you, if I talk to you on a regular basis, I kind of have a reasonable, maybe not reasonable, I have an expectation that you're going to act like a reasonable human being, and we can agree to disagree about the things we don't agree about.
Yeah.
And if you disappoint me sufficiently, then I eject you from my life and never want to speak to you again. And it's not because we disagree. It's because we couldn't disagree respectfully.
Yes.
Because in my weird little worldview, the respect is the important part. Like, you and I could have it out. Matter of fact, and I always use this as the greatest example, Eddie.
Yeah.
Eddie and I, offline, two of us by ourselves, have had some incredibly, like, 45-minute long debates about things.
Yeah.
Very passionate, very, you know, each equally educated in the subject from our own perspective, agreed about freaking nothing.
Yeah.
Came away from his friends and said, hey, I don't agree with you. You don't agree with me. You know,
every
no hard
time I've had
feelings.
a disagreement with the guy, he's been respectable about it.
And as long as that is the perspective I come away from, I can continue to call a person friend when we have nothing in common.
Best man at my wedding disagrees with me politically about just about everything except firearms.
Yeah.
He's really into firearms too. But we can have
But
a
is he
discussion.
into unregistered ghost guns?
No. He's into Mausers. Which is cool. I get
he's
it.
He's a Milsurp fight.
He's definitely a Milsurp guy. I don't even know if he has an AR yet. He's in Wisconsin, so he can. But
I'm sorry, but like there are definitely two different kinds of gun owners, and I am the should be able to buy RPGs at a vending machines type. And if you're not, that's fine. That's cool. Just understand that there are two kinds of gun owners.
That's true. And they can always choose not to
one.
use the vending machine. You don't have to buy it.
Yes, but very often the second type of gun owner doesn't want the vending machine to exist at all. So, you know.
Boo.
Boo. Boo. Anyway, Raggle. That's how you pass values down from one generation to the next.
It is.
I will say that one of the frustrations and joys of having children is making peace with the fact that my child and I will not agree on everything. And I don't know if I want her to. Like I've said for years that like my goal was to teach her how to think, not what to think. Mm-hmm. And as a result, I have to kind of like be at peace with the fact that she's going to make her own decisions, come to her own opinions, and we're not going to agree on everything. And that's cool. But it does my heart good when she and I can go like toe to toe in an intellectual discussion, disagree about everything. But she doesn't back down. She doesn't resort to personal attacks. She doesn't resort to emotion. She just defends her points. So it's like, okay,
it's a quality intellect right there.
Even though we don't agree, and even though I question some of the things you're portraying as fact, at least you thought this through enough to get to the point where you can go like head to head with a grown adult.
You can defend your stance.
Yep.
I can respect somebody that has done the due diligence enough to defend their stance beyond, yeah, but it's a good thing.
Yeah. As long as you're not taking your whole opinion straight out of a TikTok feed, like I feel like there's been some progress made.
I did have one coworker that I just could not stand. He was one of those guys that thought he was going to create a free energy machine and that the government was trying to kill him with Apache helicopters.
Not the craziest conspiracy theory I've ever heard.
You couldn't pay me enough to work with that guy. And I told my boss that. I said, you can't pay me enough to work side by side with that guy. I have to be in a different department.
Apparently your boss agreed.
He did. I got moved. But that's okay. He left. I'm still there.
It worked out.
Worked out for the best.
Let's see here. Jeff Jag. Fortunately, I'm paid enough to deal with the fact that day shift has a collective IQ of 56. I mean, hell, that's above
freezing.
That's above freezing.
As a day shift myself, I have to say third shift is always responsible for all the crashes.
Yeah. Raggle says day shift is stupid and night shift is lazy. This is the way of the world. Mm-hmm. And Raggle thinks your coworkers sound delightful.
He was an interesting fellow.
I might have used the word entertaining, maybe not delightful.
Yeah, he was entertaining for sure.
And Jeff saying, I'm convinced that no politics, religion, or money at the dinner table is a government plot to make teachers the only ones to talk to your kids about it.
It has to do with, all right, so where etiquette at the dinner table came from was European court politics and the acceptable and unacceptable things to discuss at a proper dinner table. It wasn't meant to be like at your house having dinner with your family. It was at the high table. These things are not discussed.
Which makes sense when you consider the fact that a lot of those customs are rooted in communal eating, like great dining halls where
correct.
If you start talking about controversial subjects at the dining hall, it would devolve into a melee.
You don't besmirch the king when he's sitting 5 seats down.
Well,
and there's a guard behind you with a sword.
Well, that, and you don't besmirch someone when their actions could cause the entire hall to erupt into violence.
Yep.
And the next thing you know, everybody you need guarding the gate is injured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's there's a certain point at which that makes sense in a communal perspective. And I get it. But I think that, like a lot of things with etiquette, it can be taken way, way too far, and it does get taken way too far.
And you see, I don't completely agree with Jeff about one thing. Like, I think if everyone played by those same rules, that like in these arenas, discussing controversial subjects are out of bounds, but in these other arenas, it's acceptable. I feel like if everyone played by the same rules, then that would work. And like, hear me out. I'm thinking to myself,
it did for a long time.
And I'm kind of thinking that like, if we all agreed, left, right, center, everybody, in these situations, like, so let's say it's dinner table and work. You don't talk about these things. And that's cool. Sure. Nobody gets to talk about those things. But in these other situations, we talk about these things respectfully. We debate and we have discourse. I feel like a lot of the problem is more the fact that, like, within the no-go places, one side decided this is the perfect place to talk about these things and get our opinion shoved in there. And the other side didn't respond to it. And then in the places where you're allowed to have these discussions, the same side who just a minute ago was saying we're going to stick it where it doesn't belong, started saying we're not going to allow the other side to get involved in this debate so that our opinion is the only one getting propagated. I feel like it was never as much a case of things weren't spoken about that should have been, as the armistice that made these social conventions work was broken.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, look at it. It's like mustard gas in World War I. The first person to use it got a pretty good edge for a minute, and they did. But now everybody's starting to discuss it everywhere, which I think is a positive, because we need that cultural pushback. We need to find that that balance where we can disagree but not consider half of our country our enemy.
And I think that's also part of the problem, though, is that I've kind of notoriously said for years, and admittedly it was major hyperbole when I said it, but I said for a long time that, like, conservatives are going to lose until we stop giving a shit if we're likable or not.
Yes,
like,
that's accurate.
We're going to lose until we stop being polite. Because I was, as a young man in my 20s, I was looking at the landscape around me, and I'm like, everywhere conservatives go, they get their asses handed to them in debates because they get shouted down by the other side, they get talked over, they get heckled, and they just don't do anything. They just sit there.
And then you get Crowder, Milo, Shapiro.
Not that I like the guy, but Nick Fuentes.
Yeah, he gets a lot of traction.
Donald Trump
gets a lot of traction for not being polite. Calling Rosie O'Donnell the fat pig and then doubling down on it is probably the single most memeable part of that year.
Well, there was a lot of memeable parts of the year, but I guess my point is like,
I don't know, man. That I still see that get passed around. And how long has it been? I mean, he lost a presidential election in between winning two.
Yeah.
So it's been at least, 10, probably 12 years since that happened. Yeah, probably 10.
I think that's kind of my perspective, though, is like, I haven't.
And he's not even a conservative.
Oh God, no, he's not. He's Bill Clinton in the 1990s.
Yeah,
I mean, like,
except we all knew from the start he was going after the hookers.
Yeah, oh, trust me, I was literally trying to find a way to make a meme that wouldn't get me banned off the internet, which was like a picture of Donald Trump, and it's like, you hate him because he's literally Hitler. I don't like him because he's literally Bill Clinton resurrected.
He is. Although, to be fair, Bill Clinton did some things economically that were a net positive for the U.S. at the time, and he deported a lot more people than Trump.
So what you're telling me is the parallels are kind of self-evident.
No, I'm saying Trump's not doing a good enough job at deporting people.
But my point is the parallels are self-evident.
Oh, yeah, they definitely are.
So my aggravation is that, the Orange Republican is not conservative enough. And
Yes.
other people's aggravation is that, I don't know, he's not Mao Zedong, best I can tell.
Correct. Yeah, well, actually, I don't know that Mao is liberal enough for the liberals now, because Mao killed a lot of gays.
Yes, and
Like a lot of gays.
and continues to persecute religious minorities.
Mao's
Left, right,
dead.
center. Oh, I'm not thinking Mao. I'm thinking Xi
Kim
Jinping.
Jong-un? Xi Jinping. Yeah, well, Xi Jinping also killed a number of gays back during the revolution.
Yes.
Or was responsible in part for their deaths.
Still
That's
committing
fine, though.
still committing genocide on marginalized populations to this day.
Literally concentration camps full of persecuted religious minorities. Hitler, anyone?
Yeah.
I mean, come on. You got it right there. It's not even a stretch. This is wild to me. But look,
The more you learn about history, the more frustrating current events become.
well, I think that can be said going back into history as far as we have written records.
Yeah.
Because the humans have not changed that much since we invented writing. They really have not.
I literally broke a college professor's heart because I told her that I was of the opinion that human beings had not evolved appreciably beyond our animal state.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think that's fairly accurate. I think if you took a hunter-gatherer human, taught them English, like pick any of the hominids, even a Neanderthal, teach them English, drop them in the U.S., I bet their behavior is not that dissimilar to what we have now. There might be some small outliers.
I actually went the opposite direction and said that if you took like your average, post-colonial, post-industrialized member of society today, and you put them in a primitive survival situation where it was kill or die, that they would revert back to a primitive animal state within days.
I mean, Somalia, anyone?
I was thinking
the Middle East, Katrina.
I was thinking New Orleans after a major hurricane, but
New York after Hurricane Sandy, there was some gang violence going on. I mean, look at modern day gang violence. That is tribal warfare reskinned over the drug trade instead of hunting rights.
Yeah.
It's as much as we like to have all these high ideals, people are animals, and unless somebody is holding themselves to a higher standard, they will default to their baser nature.
That's what I told a cultural anthropologist professor, and she, I think I saw her die inside.
Probably. Because, look, I mean, there's a lot of fancy shit we do. It looks really different. Have you seen the clay tablet translation, Phil, of the Copper Review?
Mm-mm.
So there is a clay tablet from, I believe it's a cuneiform tablet, where a customer is writing a review of or sending a complaint letter about some bad tin or copper ore that they were shipped from a guy. And the only historical note of that copper merchant is this one complaint letter.
The single one-star review.
El Nassar. Yep, El Nassar. He is only known for history of having shipped a bad batch of copper. One bad batch of copper. And if you read the translation of that, it sounds like a terrible Yelp review of a restaurant. It's hilarious. You guys got to go look it up. It's great.
Obviously, Raggle hangs out in cooler parts of Reddit than I do.
Yeah. It comes up all the time in various subreddits. It comes up sometimes on Instagram. It's pretty great. Oh, apparently there were several bad review tablets. That's awesome. What are you gonna do? I mean, people in the Greek and Roman era, we're bemoaning the weakness of the modern youth, the weakness and laziness of the modern youth, and how they are spoiled by modernity. Like,
by the same people
one
doing
for
the
one.
complaining, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It is one for one how the boomers talked about my generation and your generation. And it's word for word how a lot of my generation talks about the younger group. And I'm like, you guys, you bitched about this then, and you're doing the exact same thing now.
So the question remains, how does a person decide whether to advocate or whether to protect their anonymity? With the understanding that, like, agree or disagree, like, I firmly believe that if you advocate for something, you are in some way hanging a target on your back.
You are.
Like,
You always will be.
How big of a target depends on how publicly you're advocating. In the case of, micro celebrities on social media, that can be a fairly wide-reaching target.
It can. I mean, all it would take is somebody with a much larger following than us taking a clip out of the show, out of context, blasting it out for one or both of us to become a pariah to a variety of groups of people. I'm sure there are things that I have said that that could probably get some people very riled up and angry at me. Yeah, Raggle, that's a good point. How much do you have to lose, and are you willing to lose it? And do you believe in your conviction strongly enough to risk it? I'll say this. If you're in North Korea, I probably would not besmirch the Kim family all that much because your life literally hangs in the balance. We are fortunate enough to live in a place where you will get a public shaming is probably the worst you're going to get. I've been publicly shamed before. It didn't particularly bother me. It's probably not going to bother me that much later.
Yeah. I think my frustration has always just been the fact that, like, maybe I'm unique in this. Maybe I'm not. I can't say I've ever felt public shame for something I said that I expected to get. Does that make sense?
I have had people attempt to publicly shame me.
But I think that's my point, is that if I say start talking about like loony lefties or, any of a variety of political, social topics, I pretty much like say what I'm going to say, and then you can attempt to public shame me, but I have to feel shame in order to feel shame, and I don't because I said it, I meant it. So buzz off.
Yeah, If you're not ashamed of what you're saying, then it doesn't really work when they try.
But the one thing we haven't talked about in all this is when you get blindsided by it, because there have been times, and you and I have talked about this years and years ago before the gun community had their great epiphany that, maybe we need to take a little bit of a different point of view if we were ever going to make these politicians shut the hell up about, our rights for 5 seconds. And I said quite a number of things that I didn't think were controversial, and based on how the gun community reacted, apparently they were. Things like we should be able to buy, RPGs out of vending machines, and there should be no NFA, and there should be no, I should be able to take a shotgun and saw the friggin' barrel down to 2 inches in my garage, and what the hell does the government have to say about it? And how dare the government force me to submit to a background check to exercise a constitutional right? And how dare the law be set up in such a way that your average police officer with a freaking high school education, hopefully a high school education, can have a friggin' full auto short barrel machine gun in the back of his cruiser, but I have to beg the crown and pay thousands of dollars for the same privilege. Like, those were all statements I made back then. And it was the mainstream gun owner that clutched their pearls the tightest and was the most vociferously against the things I was saying. And that's the thing we haven't talked about that shocked me the most was, if I were in a group of anti-gun people and made these statements, I expect people to get upset. I hope you get upset. Pile the shame on if you think you can figure out how to shame me for the things I said, because I meant them. But it was when I wasn't expecting the shame and I wasn't expecting the reaction, and that's when I got surprised the most. Because I said things I thought in the presence of like friendly ears. And I found out very quickly that even in a group I considered myself to be a member of, I was all of a sudden the fringe element.
I don't think you can prepare for that because it's almost like an unanticipated betrayal. But I think that you do need to speak out, especially in groups where you feel like you are one of the crowd. Because it serves as a reality check to yourself of, well, do I really believe this? You know what I mean? And you evaluated that and thought, no, vending machines. That is the correct answer. And you know what? Good. If you can't take a critical look at your own beliefs and your own statements and say, okay, yeah, maybe I went too far on that one, or no, that wasn't going far enough. We're going further. Because upon further reflection, you're all wrong, and I was wrong because I didn't go far enough.
And I think that's kind of where I get bound up sometimes. That's where this whole discussion about do I advocate or do I hold my tongue really falls apart, because like for me personally, and some of y'all out there might be the same, but like a lot of times my problem is I believe in the principle of something to such a degree, I don't know how to compromise on it. Like the whole RPGs have a vending machine thing.
Yeah.
I've had this debate with people that are like, well, you can't honestly think that just everybody should have guns. Like, what about the mentally ill? What about this? What about that? And I'm like, if you trust them to walk amongst the streets with my wife and daughter,
have a driver's license,
yes, then I trust them to have all the rights and privileges everyone else does until they do something stupid. But the trick of it is,
do you trust them to vote?
Yeah,
because that's voting. You could be voting with a nuke.
And
president does have the football.
And at the same time, I always fall back on the saying that I love the most. Mm-hmm. At any given time, an opposing party is welcome to resort to violence, as long as you understand that I'm probably better at than you are.
Yep.
And that's kind of why I believe the way I do about like firearms ownership or people being able to freely carry firearms. If you have a gun and I have a gun, I'm not concerned. We're on equal footing. I like my odds.
I don't like my wife's odds versus a 6'4", 250-pound bodybuilder. She has a gun.
I can tell you that my wife and I have wrestled enough that I think I've firmly made that point with her that like you're not.
Oh yeah.
You're not handing any grown man the business, honey.
I had a girlfriend in high school that grew up with all female cousins and all sisters. And
was she one of the ones that thought you could talk your way out of anything?
She thought for sure that she had watched enough action movies that she could kick the ass of just about anyone. And I said, bet.
Why is it that people that have never practiced the use of violence are always the ones that insist it's never it's never the answer?
Yeah, or at the very least that they would be unconscionably good at the application.
Is this like the discussion we had about training not too long ago, where it was like, why would you think you will suddenly miraculously rise to the occasion to do something you've never practiced doing before?
Because the only thing the media has ever shown you is heroes rising to the occasion.
We need more.
Think about it. All of our childhood, what did you see? You saw spy kids. The kids with no training at all suddenly becoming super spies.
But wait. Saving Private Ryan. Whole friggin' squad of Army Rangers, every last one of them dead and dying by the end of the show.
True. That I think that is the first movie I saw that was a like cultural touchstone that showed the reality of that.
And while we're at it, Black Hawk Down.
You know, I don't know if that was as big of a cultural touchstone as Saving Private Ryan.
13 Hours.
I've never seen 13 Hours. I should probably watch it.
I will just say before I move the ball a little bit, like 13 Hours, you would probably really enjoy 13 Hours.
I probably would if you're putting it in that same category.
It's a very different type of movie than Saving Private Ryan. It's I don't know. Like as a combat veteran, there are parts of it that are very hard for me to watch.
I would believe that.
You know,
I have heard the same
get,
thing about Saving Private Ryan. I've heard the same thing about Hacksaw Ridge.
There are parts of Saving Private Ryan that like genuinely bring tears to my eyes because, like, for those of us that served in combat, some of those things you see, you put yourself mentally in that situation and think to yourself, like, if that was me and my buddy, I'd be having a bad day.
Yeah.
But in any case, we got totally off the topic and all the way over here, and I have no idea how we got here.
Well, I think that it comes down to a cost-benefit analysis. This whole topic comes down to a cost-benefit analysis. Is it going to cost you more than you are willing to pay? And I think for a very long time, the amount people were willing to pay on the conservative end to talk about their beliefs has been extremely little. And that's rapidly gone away, especially in the Second Amendment community, especially in the anti-abortion community, especially in the religious community. I'm seeing a lot more people very rabidly advocating for their Christian conservative beliefs. And you know, I'm not a religious person. I'm not. I have said that before on this show, and I've had discussions with my wife lately where I've said, honestly, I might be wrong about not being religious because clearly the rest of the world can't handle their shit without Sky Daddy holding a sword over their head.
I mean,
you know?
Oh God, are you and I ever going to have the religion episode? How would we even do that?
With at least 2 glasses of bourbon apiece.
Okay, that we'll pocket that one. That might be a patron only episode, but we'll pocket that one for when we're both intoxicated.
We should definitely do it as a patron only episode and a pre-record, so that in case it goes way too off the rails, we can edit it.
Oh hell no, I don't edit. I don't edit ahead of the patron episodes. We actually have not done like a dedicated for the patrons random facts episode in a while. And now is definitely not the time to do it because tomorrow night we're doubling up because I got to get one in the pocket for the next couple of weeks of my life that are going to be insane. But
family do be like that sometimes.
Yeah. But I mean, to your point about the cost benefit analysis before we roll this out, I don't think it was just a cost problem. Like, conservatives weren't willing to pay the toll. I think the problem is they didn't see any benefit. Like, this has been the argument I've made about, like, people that are anti-gun. Most people that I meet that are ideologically opposed to the civilian ownership of firearms, like on a principle basis. Their problem is they see the cost as they see it of civilian gun ownership. There's violence that involves firearms, people are injured, blah, blah, blah. But they don't see any benefit to balance out the other side of the scale. I look at it from a historical perspective and say, every time the government are the only people that have guns, really bad shit happens after that. So the benefit to civilian gun ownership is that we don't become Stalin Russia or Mao Zedong China or the Khmer Rouge in Cambodia. We don't do those
current day China.
Yes. But my point is,
our sponsorship.
We don't do any of those things. We don't allow the genocide against people because the people have a lot more guns than the government does.
Heck, look at our own country's history with the Native Americans.
Yeah.
There were laws against selling them firearms too.
And African Americans.
The only historical basis we have for firearms regulation in this country are slave codes.
Yep.
What does that tell you? There.
Tells me that there was an ardent interest in making sure that people that might want to shoot you for doing bad stuff to them don't have the guns to shoot you.
Instead of just not doing bad things to the people.
That's very high-minded.
So far out of your way to just not be a dick.
But my point is, that's the problem. That's where I see anti-gun people like get stuck. Is there's all this cost, there is no benefit, therefore guns are net negative. Period. End discussion. And I think that was the problem. Stuart,
I got you to click on the wrong one.
Stuart, we're not starting over. You should listen to it though. It's been a really fun conversation, and we did lots of meandering. But I think the problem for conservatives for a lot of years, what kept conservatives as a large group quiet, was that they saw the cost being social ostracism, public shame, and they didn't see a benefit to it. Like, the idea that I grew up with was that, well, conservatives are logical, we're rational, we're right, our ideas are better, so we'll win. And we as a group continue to get our asses handed to us in the court of public opinion over and over and over. And it didn't matter how right we thought we were, we kept losing because we wouldn't fight.
The populace at large are not rational actors.
And so I think that's the parallel there, though.
Mobs are not rational actors.
But I think that's the parallel. For too many years, conservatives said there's a cost, there's no benefit, I'm just going to let it slide. And
that's fair.
And I think now that the Overton window has gotten pulled as hard as it did to the left, now our generation...
It's nothing but downside.
And now our generation of conservatives are grabbing our side of the Overton window and yanking it as hard to the right as humanly possible, saying... No, there is a cost, and the cost is this, and the cost is this, and this, and it's my culture being disintegrated. It's my ideas being tread under. It's my rights being taken away from me. It's the government choosing winners and losers when their job was to make the playing field level in the first place. I'm not cool with this. I can see the cost involved in keeping quiet, and the benefit is, I can see the benefit to speaking up is that my voice gets heard, and therefore the cost is now justified. I think that's the difference between our parents' generation of conservatives and our generation of conservatives. We're finally realizing what they never did, which is being quiet does cost something too.
It does. The cost is too damn high to being quiet.
Yep. So anyway, that is some version of a debate that I had with myself when I first started this podcast 10 years ago this August. It's a version of a debate I have with myself occasionally. It is still to this day the thing that I ask myself when I have a moment to think and breathe, and I'm like, wow, I really thought this was a great idea. And I guess in most ways it was, but I don't know. Looking back on it. Oh, it's been a hell of a lot of fun. I've met a lot of really cool, interesting people doing this podcast. I mean, I've met you for one, but at the same time, I look back at it and think to myself, I'm like, did I truly understand what I was risking by putting my face and my full name on the internet and saying, take a shot at me if you think you got one?
No, I don't think you did. I don't think any of us really do, because the retaliation that you can get for putting yourself out there can be quite extreme.
Yeah.
And fortunately, unfortunately, however you want to look at it, we've mostly had positive interactions with people.
For the most part.
And I think that's because because the original mission statement for this podcast from you has always been, how do we help people help themselves?
Yeah.
To some extent.
Yeah. Not always going to agree on what is helpful, but, I at least try. Freaking Stewart. I usually do take a shot at the Taliban recruiter lookalike.
Well, I mean, fair enough.
He's just jealous of my beard.
He is.
And in addition to a bourbon sponsor, I apparently also need a beard oil sponsor. So,
Well, beard oil does have a price tag on it.
I mean, I have a brand, and I really like that brand. And if they were to reach out and say, hey, we'd love to sponsor your show, there's now 2 of us on the show with beards, so we could probably make something happen.
That's true. There was 2 of you on the show with beards originally.
Yeah, but he had his own brand, and I didn't like his brand because I don't care for the smell.
I'm not particularly settled on any particular brand.
Okay, so Nick's wide open, and I have my preference, but no one's reaching out to sponsors for beard oil, so, I
sent my wife out to the store and said, I require beard oil, and she brought it back, and it smells nice.
I'm going to shoot her a message and turn her on some stuff that, if she likes the smell of it, you're going to wear it.
This is accurate. Yes.
That's usually how it works.
I keep the beard because my wife likes it. Like, look, The only kind of peer pressure that works really well on me is coming from either my wife or my grandma. One, because my grandma has been known to swing a shovel quite hard and is very good at baked goods. And my wife is also very good at baked goods.
And can probably also swing a shovel.
She has yet to swing a shovel at me on purpose. So we shall see.
Yeah, I'm going to send her a message about beard oil and swinging shovels. But
ooh, this might be painful.
We'll go ahead and wrap this one up. I will tell y'all now, because y'all will be... So right now is the 26th of February. Y'all will be watching this tonight and hearing this on the 28th, Saturday morning when it goes out. Mm-hmm. March 12th. And I'm going to say it now, and Nick, I'm going to ask you to help me remember to say it on the episode we record tomorrow, but I'll probably forget. That episode will be pre-recorded. You are all welcome to come into the comments like usual and antagonize each other. Unfortunately, Nick and I will not be able to hear you because that episode will be pre-recorded. And I'm just telling y'all now, in case I forget to record it on the show tomorrow. I don't know. I don't like pre-recording.
I'll probably remember halfway through the show to remind you to say it's a pre-record.
That's better than neither one of us remembering. But I mean, personally, I don't care for pre-recording. I enjoy the audience interaction. Mm-hmm. Even Stuart browbeating me about, being a Taliban recruiter lookalike. But in this case, like, it's kind of a necessity.
Yeah.
Pre-record live. Stuart, I don't know how on earth we would do pre-recorded live.
Well, you could just live stream when we're recording ahead of time and then put it up later.
Yeah, but then no, that feels weird because then it's been floating around out there for like 2 weeks before it goes out on audio. That's just
right. It's gonna throw things off. It'll throw off all of Phil's feng shui.
Okay, so I don't know if anybody's been around long enough to remember, but I actually tried this a long time ago where there was a time years ago, I think Andrew and I were still recording together. I actually pre-recorded an episode. Actually, no, Andrew and I pre-recorded a couple of episodes because that was right before he had to exit the show and his schedule got really weird. So we recorded 2-3 shows in advance. That way, if he couldn't make it on any particular day, I already had content. We just kind of stayed a week ahead. And then at some point, I lost a whole episode that we pre-recorded, just forgot to post it, and I found it 5 months later. Which is a little frustrating because I am hyper-organized. It's part of my, hyperfixation and autism, and I just lost it. It was uploaded into our podcasting interface. It was just sitting there in draft. And that's probably why I lost it, because it wasn't on my hard drive where I have things nice and, lined up and ready to go. But I put it out there so that I always kept one episode in the interface. That way, if something happened, I could literally just jump on with my phone and just kick it in, just publish it from my phone.
Yeah.
And then I lost it.
Oopsie poopsies.
5 months later, I was like, whoops.
Oh, look. A Patreon drop.
Yeah. Anyway, let's go ahead and wrap this one up. I got to take a shower. I got another crappy.
I am going to hassle you about a Patreon episode, though, once things get settled. Give it a month or so.
You know what?
Get into summer.
Weekend
or spring.
That weekend in a couple of weeks after the thing I have to do, that might be a nice quiet weekend to do a patron-only episode.
We can do that.
We'll figure it out.
All right. Absolutely.
Matter of fact, it's going to go out the door. Just remember, whenever we have this conversation about whether you be an advocate or you protect your anonymity, I believe you have a responsibility to advocate for the things you hold near and dear to your heart. And yes, there very well might be a cost involved in speaking up, but there will also be a cost involved in not speaking up. So you decide which cost you're willing to pay and which one hurts your emotional, social pocketbook the least. And I'll talk to y'all another week. Bye, everybody.
Night.